How's it going with you?
Oh man, so lots happened since you and I last spoke.
I know.
So,
Well, let's start at the with the elephant in the room. What's how you handling this coronavirus thing?
oh shit, we're already in it.
Oh yeah, man. I don't mess
Okay,
around,
cool.
man. I only have so
All
much
right, on.
time, recording and stuff. So no one literally listens to anything more than. I'm pushing it at an hour, but
Right.
there's a podcast that I follow called Joe Rogan. Well, I follow a bunch of them, but Joe Rogan is one of them, and he has his guests on there for 3 hours. People are watching it, but after maybe 45 to an hour, I'm like, all right, I'm done. So I just got to kind of move on.
Yeah. No, I hear
Um,
it. Yeah.
so how are you?
Well, I'm doing all right, man. For me, it wasn't really that much of a difference because I like being by myself. So, but what the hardest part was for different people that I know what they've been going through. A close family friend, he had a cardiac event, and because of the hospitals overflowing because of coronavirus, they ended up not resuscitating him. So,
Ugh.
that really sucks. So that happened, and two of my ex-girlfriends got it, and they weren't doing too well. But for me, it's just it's just more of an inconvenience because I like to go grocery shopping in the middle of the night, and now I got to do it at 8 or 9 in the morning. It's like, really, man, I got to be up for this shit.
Yeah, that's the weird thing too. I was just talking about it recently that there's a couple of supermarkets pretty close to me. One is
Mhm.
actually in walking distance. So I'd gone over there at the beginning of when this whole kind of thing, the toilet paper fiasco kind of started.
Right,
And it was cleared out. I ended up getting, some crappy bread that I don't like, and I grabbed peanut butter and jelly. I just needed something to have in the
right,
in
right,
the house. And then
right.
I figured, because I'm in that, Hollywood-esque area, a lot of people kind of live here. I figured, I'm going to go deep, deep in the valley. I'm going to find like a Ralph's, like really far in the valley. And I found one, which was great. We had to wait outside for, for however long, because they were only letting so many people in the supermarket at the time, and they had
Right,
everything,
right.
which was great. And then I'm like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. So I switched to Amazon Fresh.
Right on.
So all my food's being delivered, which I'm trying to figure out if I think it's probably a wash as far as expense. You know what I mean? It might be a little bit more because I think we tipped the driver $5 or something, which is fine.
Right.
I think, but there was a number that I used to spend every, every week on food, and it's maybe a little bit. Actually, it's like maybe $20 or $30 less, which is probably because I'm not buying good food. I'm buying, peanut butter and jelly and pasta and
Right,
crap that I shouldn't be eating. But
right.
it's kind of hard to kind of do it in this world. What are you? Are you? What's motivating you? How are you keeping yourself motivated?
Well, I gotta tell you, man. For me, I've always been a self-starter, and for me, being motivated has never been a problem. At least not until, as you know, I had my heart attack back in 2007. So ever since then, it's been a big challenge because after the heart attack, depression came out of nowhere and just amped up, and that's been a constant struggle, every single day. And so motivating myself now, it's a bit tough because I got to make myself do stuff. I have to make myself get up and get active and whatever else. And that's actually what's been helping is that I make it a point to train. So up until the gym closed, I was training 2 or 3 days a week, a couple hours every single day, at least until I hurt my knees. That's a whole other story right there. But I was training, and that actually helped a lot because if any length of time goes by and I don't train, I can't function because my depression just kicks in. So it's been hard because with mobility issues on top of the depression, there's only so much I can do. But when one of the things that motivated me, and actually it has to do with the series, actually, is back, I don't know. I wrote, I don't know if I told you, but I wrote a book a few years ago, and called Pollyanna's Tear-Soaked Battlefields of Hollywood: Survive a God Against the Cynicism and the Hypocritical. And my motivation for that was largely in part, coming to LA, and just like most people, you get to LA, you get a shitty little Hollywood apartment, and it just really shocked me the amount of homeless people, well, homeless kids, I should rephrase that, like, young runaways, 15, 16, 18 years old. But it was like volume, there's so many of them. And since I lived right off of Hollywood and La Brea, I used to just go walk around and talk to them, and they all had the same exact story. So it got me really thinking about how so many people kind of just show up, waiting to be discovered or whatever. They're not prepared, they're not ready anyway. They're competing like people like you and I, which we have years and years and years into this, and more than just one discipline. So these kids, they show up and they're like, expecting the streets be be gold for them. You know what I mean? So part of my motivation on a daily basis is I think about all these young kids, and that actually helped motivate me into writing the book, which actually turned into what the series is. So as you can see by the
you're all branded out there. You got the shirt on, you get the background. Yeah. It's like all about it. It's like, I noticed I was going to say something, but you brought it up, so I figured I'd crap on you during this. So.
Well, I'm feel free to give me shit. It's cool, man. Yeah. And actually, I was actually going to wear a different shirt, but the shirt I was going to wear was like really obnoxious. And I'm like, you know what? I'll just put this fucking thing on, and this is good enough. But yeah, man, it's every single day is a challenge, and what gets me motivated is I ask myself, what can I do today? And since becoming disabled, it forced me to focus on what I can do and not on what I no longer can do. So my window is getting, smaller and smaller of the things that I'm able to still do. But, I don't live in the past. I don't live in the woe is me and all that bullshit, because what's the point? And, to keep myself motivated, I just focus on what I can still do. Yeah.
I mean, that's good. I mean, but are you're still getting out and walking around the neighborhood, or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I did 8 kilometers, which is a hair under 5 miles this morning on my bike, but I walk every single day. I can't run, but I do virtual walks or marathons and that kind of thing. And I've done 3 marathons. I did a 50K just like 2-3 weeks ago, which is why my knees really hurt. But 50K, that's what, 31 miles, something like that. So I keep active that way, but I'm used to going to the gym and training and picking up heavy stuff. That's what I'm used to.
Right.
But I mean, I do what I can to stay active, because otherwise it's like, oh man, I can't get out of bed. And, I just don't want to do that.
So let's reverse back a little bit.
Right.
To 100 years ago when we first met, or probably before that, I'm assuming. I don't remember where you were in your career at that point. But let's kind of go back to, I have some bullet points here, and we've talked about some things, but I'm going to me, I've got like the worst ADD in the world, so I'm going to go all over the place.
Right.
But let's go back to why you came to Los Angeles, and then how you kind of got into the entertainment career.
Well, it's funny because in New York, I was a studio musician for a bunch of years, and music was like my world. But I got so turned off to the business side of it. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I was looking at 3 different world tours. I was doing all these sessions, and I had opportunities that came up. The first one was some rock band. The second one was like this big R&B, like a Prince kind of act. And that fell through. They actually called me, and we're getting ready, figuring out the details. And they actually got my number from somebody, but they thought I was somebody else. So that went away. And then the third one was with Typo Negative and the bassist. I can't remember his name. We almost got into a fight. I just couldn't stand that fucking guy. So, around that time, I ended up having some health issues, or found out that I had some health issues. So that kind of changed everything. And it got pretty severe pretty quickly, and I ended up having to rethink, what I'm going to do. What am I going to do when I grow up? So I ended up moving to Florida, stay with my brother, and put myself through school there, and said, well, since I did grow up in the arts, let me see if I could get into some kind of design or animation end of it. So this way it's not as physical taxing, but yet I'm still in the entertainment world. And like I may have mentioned, I grew up in theater. So prior to being a studio musician, my parents had a theater troupe called, I think it was called Children's Hispanic Shadow Puppet Theater of New York or something like that. And it was started by both my mom and dad. My mom was a pioneering woman of TV. I mean, she had a TV show called Tia Tata's Cuentas Cuentos that she directed, produced, starred in back in Cuba. And it's still on the air. It's been on the air for like 70 years. So she started that. And to make an extremely long story short, when my family ended up in New York, they started with theater again. And I just grew up in all of that. So between that and learning how to play piano and drums at a really young age, that's how I kind of fell into music, I guess you could say. And then it just kind of, growing up in New York, I got to, this, you play drums. And
yeah, that was the thing we never taught. I mean, that's what you were. You were a drummer. You said that you were doing traveling stuff, but yeah, you've been a drummer since you were, like me. We've both been since puppies or whatever. You came out of our
right. Well, when I ended up, like I mentioned, when I ended up finding out that I had some health issues, I ended up moving to Miami. My brother, I was staying with my brother, and he was living in that area at the time. And that's where Renee Berson, who we met, became good friends, and actually roommates when we first moved out to LA. But it was always like, when I was a studio musician, which is why I brought this up, my friends are coming off a tour, and one thing that they all said was, oh man, I hated going to LA. Oh, fuck that. I never want to go back there again, until they go back on the road and they end up there and all that. So being that I had to redirect my career because of health issues, and I started getting into design, I'm thinking, well, what can I do in the design world where, what can I do as a profession, make a decent amount of money, and I put together a long-term plan, which spanned decades actually. So this way I could have a better quality of life and retire and have a passive income and so forth. So I thought, okay, well, I can get into special effects. I can get into animation. And actually, when I went to school, I studied film. And I also got into, graphic design. I studied animation. And, the first school I went to, I did a double major, made Dean's List, all of that. And then in the second school, I studied film. And I was like, you know what? I don't need to be in Florida anymore. I need to get to LA, and that's where I need to be. And when you and I met, I sent out, it was thousands of resumes, because I started sending out resumes before I even moved out there, like a year and a half before I moved out there. And I ended up speaking to an HR person at Fox who ended up hiring me. And I was there for several years. But it was like this whole long process, and just like planning it out and thinking, okay, I need to do something that's going to be still in the business. And just like the LA thing was the move that made sense. So I got into that. I got into design, and when you and I met, I sent out resumes because I already had such a broad background in so many entertainment related fields. I had by plan A through plan H already, like, oh shit, now what? And when you got handed my resume, that was plan G. It was like, oh shit, okay, I'll go back to lighting because I've done theatrical lighting and I've done that kind of thing. So for those out there, Rob gave me my first paying job in LA.
You and Renee both, actually.
And Renee. Yeah, and Renee. And Renee, look at what he's done with it.
Yep. So, go ahead. So I basically wanted to get to, because you've done a lot of stuff in the industry. We don't need to go with your resume. We can IMDb you or whatever like that. Like, we don't have to do any of that stuff. But I guess basically the breakdown to me is someone who or someone who might be listening who doesn't know that much about it, what is your job title and what exactly is the breakdown? Like, what are you actually, what do you do?
Well, for up until I became disabled, because the little bit that I do now is more on the producing end, but up until I became disabled, I was best known for being a designer, a motion designer. So I working mostly in television. I did some special effects, a lot of film titles, that kind of thing, but a lot of my background was actually in television. I mean, there's something like 400 different projects just in TV. And then on top of that, I've produced several films or co-produced several films. And one of the things I got into with one of my partners was development. So we used to develop TV and film projects. I mean, we've developed over easily 120 different TV properties alone, and some made it into productions, everything. But there was always like one problem. There was always like someone in the process of who we had to work with, where they just got greedy and things just fell apart. But that was one of the things that we did. And then on top of that, I was also considered what was called a finder, and a finder does. What they do is, let's say you have a film or television project and you need matching funds, you need some kind of angel investment, you need distribution. I get that for you. So at the time I was friends with this gentleman, Straw. I can't remember his name right now, but he was like the number 2 guy in this distribution company. And the interesting thing about that particular company, what his boss used to do, I don't know if I told you any of this before, what his boss used to do, he used to go into different parts of the world, like war zones and some really hairy places. And he would just find, okay, who's the warlord of the day, and just show up there and say, hey, look, I couldn't give a flying fuck about your politics. Let's make money. And that's how the company grew. So they started getting all these properties in different parts of Europe and in Africa that no one in the West even wanted to touch. So here I am. At one point, I had my hands on a little bit over 240 different projects, and I was like, okay, well, let's make some serious money. So that's on top of, the development stuff, that's on top of the music stuff, that's on top of writing. And I mean, it's just so, like you said, it's just like a laundry list of crap that I've done over the years.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, we don't need to, because the main part of this interview was what you're doing now, but I just kind of wanted to give a little background and see how you got there. And I guess the next question, a perfect segue, is how did you get from all that into Hollywood
Unapologetic?
I was reading the brand behind you. So.
I know it's a bit obnoxious, I know, but I'm really big on branding, man. I'm really big on branding.
Yep.
Well, Hollywood Unapologetic actually came about because of the book that I wrote. And what ended up happening was, back around 1999, I started assembling different stories, everything from the music world and different things I've seen in theater, into the early days of my Hollywood experience. And just like everything from different things on the business side to some hairy stuff. So, the book got into, on the positive side, all the production related stuff and the business of the, contracts and so forth. But it also got into, the hairy stuff that a lot of people either don't know about or don't even talk about. Everything from extortion, casting couches, all kinds of sex rings and parties, and all kinds of like really heavy stuff, murder, rape, that kind of shit. So when the book was finished, my co-writer, she ended up going through the edit and became ill, and everything just stopped. And because I became ill, I ended up falling into the blacklist. So when I had my heart attack that I mentioned earlier, within 12 hours, my phone just stopped ringing. So I used to ring around the clock because of the finder thing that I mentioned. So out of the 2,200 or so contacts out of my phone, everything just stopped. So since the book was done, I haven't been able to get any kind of distribution because people didn't want to deal with me. And I said, you know what, let me start the series. And actually, originally, this series was supposed to be a 3-camera studio shoot with someone else on camera. So, we had everything planned out. But since the book never got, distributed, And I said, well, you know what, let me take that information and do something with it. And that's how the series came about. But the whole point of it all is to be able to give this information forward, because one thing I've seen it in New York, but I've seen it far more here in LA. You got so many people that are just not prepared. You know, they're just not prepared at all, and they show up, and it's tragic, some of the things that have happened. I mean, I've met quite a few individuals that have had some really tragic ends, and it was because they just didn't know how to circumvent the sharks in suits and other predators that happen to be in this town. Does that work?
Of course. I mean, you know, but let's kind of reverse a little bit. What the book? I mean, like, how, you know, what was the book originally? I mean, how did you? I guess I want to know a little bit about the book, but I also want to know how you segued into turning the book into basically the show that you're doing.
Well, the book itself, like I mentioned, had all this positive and negative stuff, and because the health issues that the co-writer had, the book actually doubled in size. So it's like over 300 pages now. And I mean, when I was doing research, I mean, the stuff that I came across, everything from the Black Dahlia to stories about pedophile sex parties, and the racketeering thing that was on the news just a couple of months back. The woman, I forgot what TV show she was on, but she was part of this whole ring in New York, and it turned out that they were taking these women and making them sex slaves, basically, and branding them and all kinds of crazy stuff. So between stories like that and then stories of different kinds of sexual abuse and rape, and then on top of all the diversity issues that came up during the Oscars a couple of years back, and just like a multitude of different things that, unless you're actually in it, and even people that are in it don't even know about a lot of the stuff that I got into. And I just thought it was important to give forward, because I strongly feel that individuals like you and I, especially since we have this wealth of information, since we have all this time in this industry, with the level of toxicity that's there, I think it's important for us to give forward in some way, shape, or form. And for me, it just made sense. Well, let me just do a book. And the interesting thing was, I had about 60 or 65 beta readers, and everybody loved it. So so it got really good feedback. But because that damn blacklist, man, because that damn blacklist, I wasn't able to really go anywhere with it. So it's been sitting for a long time, and I just got really frustrated. And I kept putting the series off, because, like I mentioned, it was supposed to be a 3-camera in studio. It was supposed to be like an interview show. So we had a different on-air talent, and then we'd have 2 or 3 other individuals come in and have like an open forum kind of a thing. And that's what it was supposed to be. But, I just got tired of just waiting. So, you know what, I can't wait anymore. And I got all this information. Let me just do something with it. So a lot of what I've shot so far is directly from the book. I mean, the information is updated, but it's the same shit. It doesn't matter what time frame it is. It's the same exact stories that keep happening over and over again. And especially with the negative stuff, because it just keeps going on and on and on. We hear it in the news every once in a while. I mean, you look at, what's that guy? The big producer, he just got charged in New York.
Weinstein?
Weinstein. This, how many individuals like him are in this business? I mean, there's tons of them. Like one of the things, like here's something that's not in the book that if I wanted to go back to, I would put in there. One of the story. Remember Shakespeare in Love? Okay, remember when it came out, when it won the Academy Awards? Do you know the story behind how that came about? No? Weinstein went out. This is to give you an idea of the kind of individual that this person was. On top of, you could think whatever you think of all the sex allegations, but on top of that, when he produced or co-produced or executive, whatever he did, that film, he started contacting people in the Academy, but people that weren't in the business anymore. They're retired, all these older guys that were in it before we were even born, and he was threatening them. He was saying, hey, I need for you to vote. I need for you to vote for this film. And I can't remember now the films that were, I mean, I think it was like, I mean, there was some really big budgeted epic style films that it was up against, and when Shakespeare in Love won, everyone's scratching their head like, really? They won Best Picture? This? And it was because of the stuff that he was doing behind the scenes of threatening all these people. And a lot of people don't even know any of that. So even though this particular story is not in the book, but it's stories like that are.
There are a bunch of things that we do know out here. You know, again,
Right.
Another example would be reality TV, and it's not necessarily reality TV. I mean, there's
Right.
scripts and they're setting things up, and you know, it's just So we, being in the business and behind the business, you know, kind of know a lot of these things. Which again, it segues me into, you know, the filmmaking essentials. Like, you know, what do you feel with what's going on right now with, you know, the Me Too movement and all these other things that are going on, and still the same stuff that were happening 20 years ago? What do you think is secrets of that kind of success?
Well, you know what? I'm glad we're talking about this, because, you know, whenever I look online, or just like look for filmmaking essential, it's always something that's gear centric. You know, it's always about, you know, when Renee and I, when we first started working in film, you know, here we are in the shitty little apartment in Hollywood, and we had several Macs, you know, broken apart with fans physically on top of all these hard drives, and everything was scuzzy. We had to power everything down and power it all back up. And here we are shooting DV, and, you know, we just did it, right? But one thing that we did not do is complain about lack of opportunity for this and that. What really bothers me is that, because when I think about filming essentials, I'm thinking about not so much the gear. Especially today, you can shoot on your damn phone. You can edit on your damn phone. So when I'm thinking about filming essentials, I'm thinking about the business side. I'm thinking about, okay, learn the trade. Pick up your phone. You already have it in your pocket. Take it out of your pocket. Learn composition. Learn how to light. Learn about color temperature. Learn about how light falls off and how it's absorbed by different colors. Learn all these different basics. And on top of that, the stuff that not enough people talk about is all the back end stuff. You know, you talk about oh my God, it's just like, you know, all the legal stuff and the contracts. You know, everything from learning about how to write a good story, everything from storyboards and like all the different individual steps that it takes to put together any kind of a project. You know, here's something that just came to mind. A buddy of mine introduced me to this couple, and they owned a higher end dating company. So you had these millionaires that were looking for dates, and what they did was kind of matchmaker kind of thing. So they put together some kind of a proposal and shopped it around and got some attention, and they wanted to make it into a reality show, much like I can't remember the name, Millionaire Matchmaker. They wanted to do something like Millionaire Matchmaker with that young lady. I can't remember her name offhand. So they had all the branding, they had all of this stuff. And when my buddy made the introductions, like, hey, can you help them out? I'm like, yeah, sure. So they're showing me all this stuff. And I said, you know what, your biggest problem here is that you want to name your TV show the same thing as your company's brand, and you're going to have a problem with that. He's like, well, what do you mean? It's like, a typical TV deal, especially when you first start, you end up writing away the rights to so many different things. I mean, large majority of TV projects, you know, your first project is kind of like you're kind of giving it away, because you can, depending on who you are and who you happen to know, you can get a good deal, but most of us, you know, that doesn't happen. So the kind of stuff that he was talking about, I was like, dude, you're going to end up giving away the identity and the branding that you guys have been working on for well over a decade, you know, for something that you're going to make very little money, if any, on. And then the executive producer makes all the money. And if it does get distributed, you know, it'll probably be a 60-40 split. So the network makes the money. And what happens to you? You do all the work and you're doing it for free. You know, are you going to do a second show after this? And of course, you weren't even thinking that far. I was like, well, then it doesn't make sense to take your pet project that's already branded and just giving it away. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, when I mentioned earlier about, getting into development, and that was something that we used to do, my partner and I, you know, we developed all these different projects, but something that kept happening, like here's a perfect example. we used to put together show packages where we would have anywhere from 4 to 8, sometimes 10, as high as 12 different show properties that we would give to our attorney, who would actually go and shop it around. So we ended up getting a deal with, I don't know if I should say who the distribution company is. I don't think I should do that. But basically what it was is they were going to take 4 of the properties and they were going to put it on 3 different networks. So we're like, oh, great. And we had a verbal agreement. It was a 60-40 revenue share on the advertising. They get 60, we get 40%. And it was verbal. It's like, okay, cool. So my writing partner, he's en route to go sign off, and they call him, and he's just like blocks away from the place. And he said, well, I was thinking about it. I think we're going to do a 90-10. And he said, well, go fuck yourself. I'm going to put in all this work in for what? And that happens a lot. That happens a hell of a lot. And a lot of people that get into this, they don't understand that. You look at reality shows in particular, you see, oh God, the lack of quality, the lack of so many different things, is because they cost very little in comparison to, like a good sitcom. Look at shows like Friends. We're talking $1 million an episode laying out, shows like that compared to a whole season of reality shows. Some reality shows, their budgets are like 10 grand, an episode. It's like 10 grand. Shit, you and I could blow that in a day, right?
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of stuff to really, when it comes to that kind of thing, there's a lot of stuff to really consider. And, like another thing that would happen to us is that we had, just three different occasions I could think of offhand where, we put together these packages like I just mentioned. And, we always went through our attorney, and she would contact different people she knew. And 3 that I can remember now, I think it was actually 5 different times that we put together packages that it ends up being distributed around. One of the people that she shows takes, repurposes the actual package, takes our name out, that person puts their name in, and then shops it around. Well, because of the people that we know in this business, we always got a phone call, 2 days later, 3 days later. And it just so happens that one or two of the times, it was one of the VPs over at Universal called up my writing partner. He says, hey, by the way, I just got this project you guys, would be interested in. This is very much like the kind of things that you do. Well, it's our fucking project. That's happened so many times. So did I answer the question?
Yeah, of course, 100%. It's tough, obviously, because, like you said, we've been doing it for a long time. So to explain people, let's kind of reverse a little bit back. Sorry, my ADD again. We're talking about, film essentials and creating stuff. And I've been talking, we're all locked down right now and people are getting creative. I happened to speak to somebody recently who said, that's an actor who is doing a lot of like this kind of stuff, like Zoom auditions, and they're doing a lot of it, stuff on tape. Things that, maybe they wouldn't have done years ago, I guess. You know what I mean? Like it now, because it's changed, but people still want to work. They're being creative. TikTok is, going through the roof right now with, and all that kind of stuff. And we're doing, we're getting more creative, which is great. You know what I mean? But again, it's, that whole thing with going back to reality also, that if you come up with a great idea, like a great podcast that turns into something, or of, these kids on Vine or TikTok or Instagram stories or whatever, you have to be able to parlay that. The problem is that once you say, once a network or production company says, oh my God, we love this idea, we want to take it, then they're like, oh, by the way, you're going to get 5% of it. All this work that you've been doing on, TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that is, for none. And unfortunately, touching back based on your book a little bit, these kids believe that. They come out here thinking, I'm going to go to LA and I'm going to do this and I'm going to become, because now I'm doing, 1 million views on Instagram. Now I can go out to LA and parlay that into being an actor and stuff. And it just, it's not that simple.
Right. Well, you know what? I'm glad you said that, because a couple of years ago, there was a handful of agents in town that they were like, okay, who's a YouTube star? And they're signing them up with shitty deals. You live in one of the flyover states, and someone offers you, 30 grand, 40 grand for, an endorsement or whatever else, that's, I mean, granted, it is a lot of money, but you and I know that's nothing, because, you get even, you don't even have to be a household name. You get some kind of a deal. It should be at least in the six figures. I don't care what it is. But because you're going to end up putting in all this different work, and they were just signing up all these young YouTube stars, and their parents are acting as their representation. Their parents don't know, because they're not in this business, and they're just saying, well, yeah, great, my kid is going to make so and so, but they just don't know. They don't know the any of the foundations, and then I mean, you know how this is, man. It's very cutthroat, and it's very difficult. And unless you know the particulars on you get a business, you get a deal memo put on your lap, and you have to figure out, well, what does all of this stuff mean? Because you talk about points on the backside. Unless you're in this, you don't even know what that means. And then they're not going to understand when you start getting into the different parts of distribution. Where, let's say it's a TV project, so here it is. You got a season, and you got to start talking about when it gets distributed to cable. Is it going to be distributed to DVD or Blu-ray? How are you going to get your money? If you're the producer of this particular project, then what about all the music side and the licensing, which is huge. I mean, that's big business right there. I mean, so all of these different particulars have to be figured out. Well, some young cat that's doing YouTube videos isn't going to know any of that stuff. So that's why when I talk about filming essentials, for me, I stress those particular points, because when you look online, I don't care if it's a YouTube video or if it's in a magazine, whenever you talk about essentials, it's always about gear. And you know what? I shoot with my damn iPhone 5. I refuse to spend $1,200 on a fucking phone. Yeah, great. I could take pictures, but I could take pictures with my shitty iPhone 5. I got a first generation iPad. I could shoot with that. And it's like, it all comes down to knowing what like learning the gear, regardless of what it is. If you know the basics of how stuff works, you can run with it. I mean, shit. I'm looking at it right now. I got a 2010 Mac Pro, and I'm running an older version of After Effects. And I mean, you've seen the identity for the show, and that's like nothing compared to some of the stuff that I've done over the years. But I know it inside and out. I don't care what you do. You got to learn your trade, and you got to run with it. And it really bothers me. Let me stop for a second. When I was going to school, the first school that I went to, I studied graphic design and desktop publishing and computer animation. And the very first class that I had, a bunch of us got together, and the class just happened to be, we're all in our 20s, some were even in the 40s. And the professor comes in, and we said to her, look, we understand this is why we're here. We want to learn all this stuff, but teach us what's not in your syllabus. And she sits down on the desk, and she stops, and she's quiet for about 2 minutes. We said, okay. And we got into the business side. So that was none of the stuff was in the curriculum. And we started getting into the copyrights and, all these different things that are really important to know. So, when I think about whatever your craft is, it doesn't matter whether you're an actor, whether you're a musician, you do it because you love it, but you do it and you do it and you do it. And how do you get better? By repetition, by feeling it, by enjoying it, by it becoming part of who you are. And when you start focusing on, especially in film and TV, when you start focusing only on gear, only on equipment, you start missing all this stuff. When I worked on Dr. Phil, there's one of the PAs there, almost every single weekend. He would shoot a short film. He shot it on DV, and I've seen a few of them, and they're horrible. Oh my God, they're horrible. Most of them are just bad. But the last time I looked him up on IMDb, he's got over 75 different films on there. You can't deny that he didn't do the work, because he wrote it, he shot it, he edited it. And the thing that he did that really impressed me was he got better, over time, obviously. He improved his skill set, his circle of people that he had access to and places to grew. And, none of that would have happened if he didn't do the work. When a couple of 2-3 years ago, when the whole thing with Me Too and all of that first started, or when it got legs under it, I should say, the common complaint was there's not enough opportunity for people of color. There's not enough opportunity for women. There's the whole ageism thing, as we know, is definitely in effect in LA, and all these different things. If you're not gay, beautiful, young, it's like an uphill battle. Like, you and I, we're good looking, but we're not like, we're not pretty, right? So we have to claw at it a little bit more. And, being that we're from New York, we got to claw at it for even more than that, because a lot of people in this town, they're intimidated by us because, we don't take shit, but we also do what we say, like accountability in LA doesn't exist. You and I, we shake each other's hands. We got ourselves a deal, right? A lot of people in LA, you can't even get a straight answer, because they just don't want to be accountable for anything.
Right.
So this is like all these different things, like with me too. Regardless of the numbers, regardless of the validity of what all the people are complaining about is, regardless of how truthful and how accurate that information is, the question that I always have is, well, what are you going to do about it? You still have to put in the work. You still have to pay your dues. I mean, I'm retired, man. I'm out of it, but I still put in my dues just doing this series. I don't have to do this series. I could be sitting on the beach, get in my car, I'm there in 10 minutes. But I'm doing this because I feel that I should. But that's the thing, is that you have to put in the work. Perfect example is, the director of Selma. What's her name?
I don't know.
God damn, I see her face and I can't remember. Duvay, something like that.
I don't know.
Well, I can't remember her name. But anyway, she ended up directing Selma and a couple of other pretty well-known projects. And, she's bringing on people of color and women into her projects, and she's helping, people, get ahead. And
Ava DuVernay.
Yes. That's her. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember her name.
That's fine.
So, if you know anything about her, prior to Selma, she did a lot of she was on the back end of things. I think she did a lot of marketing, if I'm not mistaken. Something like 70 or 75 different film projects. So, people think like, okay, this person, she just got this kind of a directing gig out of nowhere. No, she put in the work for decades, but people don't know that. So, I noticed that, I've done 2 episodes on diversity in our industry, and the negative comments I got are all the same shit. It's always about, well, you don't know because, before you say anything, you should know more about this and that. It's like, okay, not only have I spoken about all this stuff before, and I've written about this already, but I also do know, because the answer to all your gripes is you still have to put in the work. No one's going to give a $300 million project to someone who doesn't know production. Right. It doesn't come down to the color of your skin or how old you are or whether you're a woman or man. If you don't know how to do it, you don't know how to do it. You and me, set us in front of a camera. We may not know the specifics of that particular camera, but it'll take us minutes to figure it out, right? Yep. So, we because we've done this over and over again.
I mean, I want to touch on 2 things. The first thing was the quality of production and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I was always taught, learning, I say growing up in the music business, but more so when I started producing and stuff, you're really only as good as your weakest link. Yes. Which means you could have the best microphone in the world, cables, mic pre's, HD Pro Tools, all that. You can have all that kind of stuff, but your voice sucks. It doesn't matter. Yeah. If your voice is amazing and you're doing it right into your computer, then that so getting that iPhone, like you said, and recording it, you don't need the Lexa Mini these days, you know what I mean, to do a great movie. You can do it. I have 2 5Ds. I have an iPhone, the brand new iPhone. Like, I have all that stuff. I could still do those things. Yeah. And the other thing too with the Me Too style stuff, and kind of touching on that, was I've been in search for many years for an actual woman, a female producer, and I'm in the music business. And because most of the people that I meet are, I just want to get up in front and sing and do all that kind of stuff like that. No woman that I've met or female that I've met has ever sit there and been, oh, I know Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton, I know how to make beats and how to play instruments. None of those girls want to do that. They want to be on front of it. And it's the same thing with, one of my TV shows that I'm working on, that I'm in development with, where it's a female writer, a female director, a female lead, mainly female cast or whatever. So I'm starting to go, yeah, makeup artists are usually female. Sometimes, obviously, they're male too. But it's been really hard for me to find a female DP or a female AC or a female grip. These women, I feel, don't, they want to go from either actor to director or actor to producer or actor to writer, but there's nothing in between there. And you've known me for years. I've done literally every single position in a feature film, in TV, all that stuff, because I want to learn. So I think it's their own, sometimes I feel it's their own fault that they haven't done, that they haven't done the legwork. And I think that's their annoyance. And I feel that if they started doing other things, that maybe it would change. I don't know. It's kind of one of those.
But look at like just you and I. When we first started working together, we did boxes, we did Recoil. I can't remember what else we did together. But
Circadian.
Circadian Rhythm, The Decade.
I wasn't in that decade was before
no,
me.
That's right.
Yeah.
But we worked on several things before.
Yep.
And what was a common point between all of those projects was that, hey man, I got an idea. I want to make this project. You doing anything? No. And then we came down and we figured it out and we did it. And that should be the way that anyone who's, especially when you're first starting out, you got an idea, you want to do it, you just do it. Complaining about it or wanting to, like the point that you made is a great point. When I was going back to the book, when I was writing it, I reached out to about 36 industry professionals that were, working industry professionals in different ends of the spectrum. And I asked, a handful of questions, but a lot of it had to do with the particulars of ageism and sexism and just diversity in particular. And the interesting thing was the ones that were working in television, and even the women all said the same thing, was that, my experience, and even, like I said, the women said this too, is that if you're in the post side of it, it's dominated by women. And when I first, let's see, and it made me really think about that. You go into the special effects world, maybe 40% of it is women. If you're in any of the offices, it's mostly women. And since I spent so much time in a post production and the visual effects end of it, easily half, if not more, of the people of the workforce are women. One of my buddies that responded, and this guy, his he's a film director, he's a motion picture director, but he's done tons of editing for television and film. And he was like, the whole thing pissed him off, because not only was he wasn't pissed off because it was dominated by women, that whole end of it, but was pissed off was the dialogue about it, because the women that he worked with, some of them made more money than he did. And I know that from me being in that world, I definitely noticed that, like, wow, there's a lot of women that are doing this. So whenever I hear about the statistics, it goes back to the point that you made. It's like, well, no studio is going to give a big budget. They're not going to give a tentpole to an unknown. It doesn't matter who you are, but you have to put in the work. And if you want to be on camera talent, but the way that I look at it, especially in Hollywood, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, the clock's ticking against you. So if you're on camera, you're expected to look good, even past a certain age. And then, and it's worse for women than it is for men, not because of how we age so much, but because of, when I came to LA, at 29, and people would tell me straight to my face that I was an old man. So people didn't want to give me an opportunity. I'm 29. You know, I had friends that, you know, one woman actually just popped in my head. She's a beautiful person, and she's drop dead gorgeous. She signed up with, I think, Ford. Yeah, I think it was Ford. And after she signed up, they said, well, you know, we can't book you. You haven't put in your LA time yet. She's born and raised in LA. I didn't put in my LA time yet. I'm a fucking model. And her boyfriend at the time, he was a really good photographer. So she's been working and working and working, you know, up until she got booked by them. But they never sent her out. So she's just doing all this other stuff on the slide because of the contract. There's some kind of exclusivity thing. But she was with them for 3 years before they started sending her out. I mean, how ridiculous is that? She was 25 when she signed up with them. So I mean, I've met so many women that are lying that they're saying they're 21 to 23 when they're a few years older because they just want to work.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I definitely say that I'm 22. So,
well, you can pull it off, man.
Well, let's give me your social media stuff. Give me give me your YouTubes and your Instagrams and all that kind of stuff like that. Right
on. Well, the easiest thing to find me would be through Hollywood Unapologetic on YouTube. That's actually the name of the channel. I have a Twitter page also. I think it's called Hollywood Unapologetic. I think it's HWD Unapologetic, if I remember. I have a Facebook page. You know, you could do a search. You know, you look online or just do a Google search for myself or for Hollywood Unapologetic, and you can find me. It's not that hard to find me. But the YouTube channel is where a lot of focus goes on, and you know, we have branding. You know, we got a Teespring account so we have shirts much better than this. So we have all kinds of stuff. And actually, I was going to mention to you, if you want a shirt, when we get off of this, I'll send you a link, and you want something, let me know, and I'll order it today and have it sent to you.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, just look up Hollywood Unapologetic or look me up, Orlando Delbert, and I'm not that hard to find online. There's tons of stuff on me.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you go. Thank you very much for real for doing this.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. This is fun, man.
And you know, I always kind of end it. I've been trying to figure out how to end it, but recently I've been ending. You know, the name of the show is Cool, Calm, and Connected, because I'm pretty much connected. Not so much cool and calm, obviously. But and we've been friends for a long time, so I've said this to you millions of times. If you ever need anything, or if you ever don't ever hesitate to call or whatever. But again, like I said.
No, thank you very much. I'm glad. I'm really happy to do this with you, and I wish further success with this and all your other endeavors, man.
Same to you, buddy.
Right on, man. Right on.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks. I'll talk to you real soon, man.
You got it.
I'll see you.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.